everybody, 216 Papa Bravo here. Today I want to talk a little bit about the die setup for the Dillon 650. A couple questions have come in about how I set up my dies, what the process is, why I choose Dillon dies, a lot of things about the inner workings of the machine, and I'm going to try to explain all that stuff here. I've chosen two die sets that I have set up already. One's for 30-06 and the other's for my 308. And just to show you the inner workings of these, what you get when you get a conversion kit, it includes the case feeder assembly, which you need the tube connection. These two parts go in the part that goes through the machine that actually goes to the case feeder, and this fits in the goes to the shell plate. So the shell drops here and it goes into the shell plate. This being the shell plate that goes on the machine. And these two machines, except for I think one thing, have all the parts are common. The shell plate's common. I believe that everything else in here is common to that. It has the same shell base, all that kind of good stuff. And I'll start with the first die that you're going to see on the tool head here. And this is your tool head for a 650. You can see it's set up for the 30-06. And when it's in the machine, it sits like this. But I'm going to rotate it over so we can see the first die, which is your D-prime resize portion of that. And what you have here is a die that you want to have when you pull the machine all the way to its topmost position. You're going to take this die and screw it down until this bottom lip here barely makes contact with the plate. And I mean barely. It's going to sit really, really close right in that slot. See how that kind of fits in there? That's how tight you want that to be. Okay, so it fits right in that. If you see that little slot there, that die fits right in there. Just like that. The light's kind of tough here, but here we go. So it's not pushing on the plate, but it's just off. So you're going to have it to it contacts, and then maybe a 1/8 or a 1/16 of a turn to get it off of that. And you can see how close these tolerances are in here, and it's really hard to see. I'm going to get you a flashlight in there, but there is the die right there, barely touching that plate. You can see how far down it goes and almost touches that plate right there. That's the correct depth you want for your resizer deprimer die. Okay, so let's get that put back up. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to fit that die so it sits in that little groove right there. Okay, and that will allow you to get your proper sizing. That's the easiest one to set. Okay. And one of the reasons I use Dillon dies is you'll notice that in most cases Dillon dies are very, very long. Those happen to be 30-06, so they're larger dies anyway, but they have enough adjustment in them, and by adjustment I mean all this extra thread depth here, to adjust your dies in or out, whichever you need. So on this one, for my particular press and the way it sits, I have it adjusted to that depth right there. Okay. Now the next two dies, the actual die itself, these two are exactly the same. This is your powder die, this is your powder check die. This part here are identical. I can interchange them. Okay, the parts fit in the same. So when you go to buy your sets, you're going to buy, if you're going to have a powder check, you're going to have to get another one of these dies. And if you when you call them, and if you tell them what you want to do, you tell them exactly how you want to set it up, you'll need to buy another one of these to match your powder check station up. Okay, now in the powder die itself fits your powder funnel, and you can see that this just slides right in just like that. Okay, and that powder funnel allows you to, as the machine tops out, and I'll use this one as an example, as your machine tops out, it's going to push that up, okay, and then drop your powder as it comes across. As this bar comes across, it collects powder here, and it's going to drop it down here, down this shaft right here. And as it does that, you can see the powder funnel there. It contacts the top of the shell casing, and the powder drops right straight through, doesn't ever catch on anything. So it has the least resistance. But that's what you want to set up. And it's probably the most difficult die to set, because you need to have it set so that the depth is far enough to get this all the way up, yet not too far to where it crushes the casing. So you want to be sure that you have the right powder funnel. Now this is for 30-06. Some of them are shorter, some are longer. The pistol ones are designed totally different because they're designed to expand the case mouth rather than have it just fit in there. Okay. So you have to fiddle this a little bit to get it correct, and once you get that setting correct on the depth of this, then you're going to lock this die down, and you're still going to have to fiddle with it when you first set it up. Even though you think you got it right, as you run the machine a couple times, you'll see exactly what needs to be done. If it's not getting all the way back on when the bar goes across, you need this bar to go completely across so it looks like that. In other words, the front is actually plumb flush with the front of this, and so that when it drops down, it comes all the way back and recharges itself. So it does take a little bit of fiddling, and I'll tell you that it's not the first time you do it. If you're a brand new guy to this, it seems impossible to get it right, but you will get it. It just takes a little bit of fiddling, and don't turn it a whole bunch. Turn it like 1/8 of a turn each time if you need to adjust it. And you're going to take a little bit of time to do that, but once you get the adjustment correct, lock this down, move on to your next step. What you're going to do is you're going to put a blank cartridge in here, and you want to set up this die, this one here. We're talking about the powder measure right now. That's this guy, this whole assembly here. That's a powder measure. What we're going to do is we're going to set this up so that this goes all the way back on the stroke. And you can see we have the case in there. It's going to go up into the die, and then you'll be able to see that whole assembly move back till it's flush. You can see how that fits all the way flush there. And you do that by adjusting the die up or down to get the correct depth. And you'll do this with a properly sized case that's been trimmed to the proper length and sized by the sizer die. Okay, so you're going to end up with something that looks like, just like this. And the other part of this is adjusting your return rod here, your safety rod, so that when you're on the downstroke, it pulls these two mechanisms down properly, so that it resets that. Okay, because when you don't have that rod in there, it kind of gets hung up right about there. See how it hangs up? Remember to push this down to get that completely down. Okay, that's your measurement that you need for the powder die. And again, you'll need to do this a bunch of times. You have to reset that cartridge case in there many times. Keep adjusting it to get it right to where it fits correctly, and then you'll have it dialed in. Okay, so the next one is if you use it as a powder check. Now this is a simple rod that fits straight down through here, and what it does is as you have your case here, it just goes up to where a certain level is, and when you have your powder check assembly set on here, it just fits in just like that. And you notice it has that groove in it right there. And the idea is that when you have your powder in your case, the powder will cause it to lift to a certain degree and be right in the middle of that. See how that sits right there? You can see if it's up a little bit, you have too much powder, you're going to hear that. If it has too low powder, you're going to hear that. If it's just right, like the baby bear's bed, there you go. Okay, and a simple adjustment here. This is real easy to adjust. You're going to set the die up. This plunger actually contacts the base there. See how it comes down, contacts that, pushes that up, and causes that to be pushed in, and you can see how that works. Okay, and like I say, I just make sure that I have that the same on every die set, so that I don't have to adjust this at all. I just stick it on here, and it works for every tool that I have, because I load 3 rifle and 3 pistol loads, so I want to have that as easy as possible to change over, because I'll just take this whole setup off of this, put it on another one, bingo, I'm set to go. Now, the next die, and again, this is another reason why I use Dillon dies, is your powder seat, or your bullet seat, excuse me. This is a bullet seater. This is what this is right here. And again, you're going to loosen this up. You're going to screw it back out so that nothing is protruding down here. Then you're going to put a bullet on top of your case here, run that up in your die, and then, oh, let me turn that off for a second. Then you're going to screw this down until you feel contact. Okay, upon contact, that means that the bullet now has contacted the case and your bullet seater. Okay, so you're going to run that down. You want to reset your cartridge, and you can do it with an empty cartridge or loaded. It doesn't matter. You put your cartridge in either empty or with powder in it. You can prime it, powder it. When you get to this stage, you can put powder in it, and you can run that bullet down. Now, I will caution you, if you do put it in there and you bit it down too far, you have to get it out somehow using one of those hammers or something. So, that is something you have to worry about. So you can do this with an empty case and then hammer it out, or just have it for a sizer case. Anyway, you're going to take and screw this part down until you get the bullet set correctly. Okay, so that your bullet depth is set correctly. It should look something like that. So that you're not too long, not too short. Check the bullet length every time. I know it's tedious, but you want to have the bullet overall case length from the top of the bullet to the bottom of the brass case to be exactly correct. Whatever the specifications in the book are. If it calls for 2.15, measure 2.15. If it measures 2.75, measure it at 2.75. Whatever the book calls for, that's what you want to go with. It is the best way to load, as safe as you can. If you compact the powder too much, you can have a potential danger of explosion. Overpressuring the case and causing other problems with either your barrel, your bolt. You can do wearing out your bullet throat, your throat of your rifle. A lot of issues come with that because you don't do this correctly. So this is one thing you want to have done correctly, is to seat the bullet to the proper depth. Okay, the next step is going to be your final crimp. Now, a lot of guys don't use a lot of crimp, some use a lot. Whatever you do, be consistent with it. So if you're changing bullets, say you go from one bullet to another, you're going to need to adjust this every time for different bullets. So if you load, say, 130 grain Spitzer in one load and set it up for that, and then move to a 150 grain round nose, that bullet will seat differently, so you need to adjust that for that particular bullet. Then you also need to adjust your crimp for that particular bullet. You're going to put it in the last station, and again we're going to loosen this die up. This is your crimp die, and again you don't want to have a super hard crimp on there. You want to have it so that it crimps a bullet. If you're trying to get waterproof, that's a different story. I just like it to where it contacts and leaves a nice seal on it where it's not too awful tight. And you can see by looking at these cases that it's not really tight, but it's a snug fit. Okay, you can barely see where the die has contacted that case. Okay, so you're gonna do the same process. You put this in here, you back that off, you get it down, you put your sizer, your press all the way down. You're gonna screw this down until it contacts that case. Lift it back part of the way, and you're going to screw it down just a little bit. Keep doing that until you get the right size. But make sure your crimp is correct. And you can do that by using a case gauge. And the case gauge will tell you if you don't have enough crimp on it. What that does is measures the internals of the externals of the case so it fits in the gauge. And as it does that, it measures it so you know it's safe to shoot. It'll load in your rifle or pistol, whichever you're doing. When you get that all set up, what you want to do is run a trial case through there. You're going to run one case. You put one case in you can screw this back. That comes right back. You're going to stick an empty cartridge in there. If I can do it one-handed. Push that back. You're going to get a cartridge in there. And you're going to run it right through the whole process. You're going to run it up and size it. You're going to put a primer in it. You're going to put it up. You're going to put powder in your powder drop. You're going to run it up in the powder drop. You're going to do it so it runs that. Okay. Then you're going to come over to your powder check die. You're going to run this up until this thing, and all you do is adjust this. It's a simple screw thing here. Adjust it to where it fits properly with that amount of powder. Then you're going to put your bullet on. Put one bullet on. You're going to run that up till it seats it properly. Okay. Then you're going to go up to your last station. You're going to put up, now that you have the bullet on there, and I'll trade this out to show you. Excuse the camera work there. Sorry about that, guys. Now that you have your bullet seated on there, you're going to run up in your crimper die. Okay. And when that's done, you're going to take the cartridge that I've just finished making. You're going to take your case gauge, which is your 223 Remington case gauge. You're going to run that in there. And if everything looks right, you don't see any brass protruding, and it's flat across the top. You can kind of see that, hopefully. See how that's flat across the top there? That's perfect. You have made a great round. You're ready to rock. Do another one just to be sure everything's properly set up. Now that you've done it a round twice, you've checked everything. You make sure the case gauge is correct. You make sure your load's correct. You're going to weigh your powder again just to be sure that's correct. And like I say, you're going to check that powder about 4 or 5 times before you actually run a cartridge with it, just to make sure it keeps dropping consistently. And you're going to put on a scale. Okay, any scale will work, either electronic or a simple balance beam. Set it up for the weight you want. Make sure it's dropping the correct weight. Adjust it accordingly. Put your machine back together, and you're ready to rock. These machines are excellent if they are set up correctly, and you do have to take time the first time, and you want to check your work every 100 rounds. As I've mentioned before, when I stop to load primers, I will double check everything on the machine. I'll check the amount of powder drop. I'll actually weigh it on a scale. I check whether or not the thing fits in a case gauge. I refill my powder hopper, refill my bullets in my bullet tray. I refill the case feeder with another 100 rounds or so of brass, and then reload the primers. And when I'm satisfied that everything is set to go, I'll continue on cranking out rounds until I run out of primers again. Then I will repeat this process. I will stop, check the powder drop, check with the case gauge, reload the powder hopper, reload the bullets, reload the primer, and so on and so forth until I'm exhausted what I want to do. And generally, in a session, I won't load more than 300 to 500 rounds, just so I have enough to make the machine profitable, so to speak. So I spent my time efficiently. But that's where it's at. Just wanted to give you that idea. Please, if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them below. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you like what you see. I try to do videos on all the different aspects of either shooting, reloading, ham operator, fun stuff. I try to do one a month. I miss occasionally. No, I won't deny that. But, you know, I do put out some videos, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And I do appreciate your watching. So you stay safe out there. Have a good time. Papa Bravo, out.